It's good to see you all. And as a reminder, the sessions are recorded and then put up on our YouTube channel. So when the time comes for you to have opportunity to ask question, if it's something private, then just tell me and I'll pause. If you don't mind that it's up on YouTube, then you don't have to say anything at all. Okay, good. Let's sit tall. We'll close the eyes. And just come into the space of your breath. Breathing in, feel the physical body expand. And breathing out, feel it gently contract. Feel that each breath is initiating a beautiful sacred spanda of life, physical life, the life of your body. And as you breathe in, feel that the mind is expanding. And as you breathe out, the mind is gently contracting. There too lies a very beautiful sacred spanda, the pulsation of the aliveness of the mind. As you breathe in, become aware of the expansion of emotion. And as you breathe out, the gentle contraction, a resolution of sorts. Each breath, a sacred spanda, bringing aliveness to your emotional being. And as you breathe in, be aware of the expansion of spirit, the spaciousness that goes on for an eternity. And as you breathe out, a gentle contraction, an integration of sorts. This very sacred spanda that initiates the connection between the physical body, the mind, the emotion, and the spirit. And now just take a moment to breathe awareness in all four aspects of the self. Notice how they can be seen separately, but they're also the same. Let that bring you comfort, knowing that you're not a fractured being, broken into pieces and parts. You are a dynamic spirit, expressing its own diversity. And you are a spiritual being seeking the truth of yourself. And drawing the hands together in front of the heart. We'll lift our voice in one Om and the invocatory mantras. If you know them, please join. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana antva ganapati gom havamahe kavin kavinam upamashravastamam Jestarajam brahmanan brahmanaspata anashrin vanuti bisidha sadhanam Mahaganapataye namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajinivati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Divo Brhataf Parvatada Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Kritachi Shagman Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. Releasing the hands down and fluttering the eyes open. Oh, so today we will talk about this phenomenon that each and every one of us experiences. It's actually more of a statement that we make. And it's the statement, I want to be awakened. I want to be enlightened. Actually, there's a couple of statements. I want to be happy. I want to be. I want. Hello. And so we do this. We go around our day and throughout our life, I want. And we think that just because we say we want something, it should be. But that's way too simple. It's way too convenient. And it's also a really slippery slope. That the more that we become entitled in our own attitude, that just because I want something, I should have it, then the less inclined we are to do the necessary associated work that comes with that desire, that longing. I know a lot of times spiritual teachers talk about desire and they say, quash your desires, desires are not good. And in some part that's very true, but in another part it's actually also not true. Because you're longing to know yourself. You're longing for awakening. You're longing for self-discovery. You're longing for happiness. Those are desires. You're longing for peace. That's a desire. Absolutely. So instead of saying like desire is bad, we can look at it and say, desire has multiple flavors. It has the flavors that are not so great, the kind that can lead to harm and of ourself and of others. And then there's also desires that are worthwhile, the ones that compel us to do the necessary work. So part of the desire, I want awakening, must also be, I want to do the work of awakening. That needs to be a desire too, the desire to do the work. Versus just saying, I want. When we focus on the I want, then we're taking this very beautiful divine gift of longing and we're turning it into an egoic preference. And for everything that we want, there's something else we don't. I want to be happy. I don't want to be sad. And then we begin to misunderstand things like balance. We begin to misunderstand things like joy and peace. And we think that balance, joy, and peace only occur when we're happy. And we misunderstand happy because we think happy is satisfied. Everything's going my way. And that's actually not what happiness is. That's ego, preference. I want everything to be smooth and easy, go my way, no hiccups, no obstacles, don't make me irritated. That's the ego. In the yoga, it states in the Bhagavad Gita and many of the scriptures, whatever comes to me, no matter what its flavor, whatever comes to me, contentment. Contentment with what is. And appropriate action. So I won't be driven by my desires that are based in my ego. Instead, I'll commit myself to right action. And through right action, I will find a sense of inner contentment, knowing that I have not purposefully done things to harm, to irritate, to aggravate, to diminish or demean, that I have only come from a place of service and ultimately in service of that divinity. Desire is what causes us to wish to be of service. So desire is not the problem. The ego is the problem. Because the ego says, well, desire should be pleasurable. And pleasurable should make me happy, as in satisfied. But we have this other part of ourself where desire is the calling, it's the longing, and it's the willingness to do the work necessary regardless of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And in that, there's a much greater, I don't like to use the word reward, but there's a much greater potential outcome for us. We've talked many times before, for those who have been here before, we've talked many times about how we go through this life and every little action that we make, we just second guess ourselves all the time. Should I, shouldn't I? Did I, didn't I? Was I right, was I wrong? Was it good, was it bad? And we load such heavy weight on our shoulders and in our minds and hearts of this uncertainty. This, should I have, would I have, could I have? Was I supposed to? Could it have been more? Could it have been less? We just put such a weight on ourselves when we approach life that way. When we're approaching the journey toward happiness on a foundation of egoic desires, wanting to make other people happy, wanting other people to make us happy, wanting life to be exactly what we think it should be. We carry the grief of that with us. We carry the disappointment of that with us. We carry the sadness of that with us. The ultimate anger of that with us. I work so hard and yet I don't get anywhere. Does that make sense? Right? So that's like the one side of it. But then, if we go through life and we understand that everything is a calling to us, everything is calling us, and where is it calling us to? It's not calling us to satisfaction. It's calling us home to ourself. And sometimes we have to fall down and scrape our knee or, go through some difficulty in order to remember something important. We have to go through these things in order to remember. They're not without purpose. And just that awareness in and of itself is enough to allow us to be content in any situation. It doesn't mean that we make excuses. It doesn't mean that we just say, well, go ahead and hurt me then. No, that's not what we're saying. Or we make justifications for our own bad behavior and hurting other people. No. If there's a threat that's posed to us, then we have to take right action to that. But how do we know what right action is? If we're so caught up in the ego that we're not seeing clearly what's actually happening. Does that make sense? Yeah. How do we see? How do we decide? Typically what we do is we lash out. We perceive that someone is attempting to harm us in some way, and we lash out. I'm going to get them before they get me. I'm going to make them pay. I'm going to get even. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show everybody. And when we move forward with those types of desires, then the reality is we're very blind. We have a spiritual blindness because we're not really seeing what is. We're seeing only what we're reacting to. We're not seeing a larger picture. When we slow down and we look and we make some type of an assessment of what's happening, when we breathe, when we come into that place of, this is purposeful, now let me explore how and why. What skills can I cultivate within myself in this type of a situation? How can I find peace in this type of a situation? How can I come to that higher calling, the desire to know myself truly, versus substantiating the ongoing story of who I think I am? So these desires, they're twofold. On the one hand, they're harmful, totally. They drive us to do things that we wouldn't otherwise do. You ever like somebody and you want them to like you back? Did you go to great extents to make it happen? Things that you probably wouldn't have done otherwise? Like maybe call them 5 gazillion times a day, or send them expensive gifts, or talk about them to people and try to get their attention in some other way. These desires, they can be very harmful to us because they're also distractions. They cause us to use so much of our energy trying to get what we want that we fail to see exactly where we are and what we need. But on the flip side of that coin, desire can be the thing that compels us to come home to ourselves. But we have to know the difference between the two. We need to know that anything that comes to us easily is probably not at all what we think it is. That there's work that has to be done. And that's not the work of 50 gazillion phone calls a day to the person that you want attention from, right? It's the work of self-inquiry. It's the work of looking in the mirror and saying, where are my behaviors crooked? I love that word, crooked. Right? It's like, where are my behaviors crooked? Where are they off kilter? Where are they affecting my inner balance, my inner peace? And let me do the work of correcting that, adjusting that, adapting myself to the cause of coming to know myself, rather than just making myself happily satisfied for a little while. Do you ever have a relationship with somebody? And initially you were like, that person's so great. I really want their attention. I really want to be in a relationship with them. And so you go way out of your way to get that relationship. You might even change yourself. You might change your appearance, your hair color, the kind of makeup you wear, or the kind of clothes you wear. You might change the way you talk and put on your sweetest possible voice just to get their attention, because you want that person to be with you so badly. You go to great extents. You're doing so much work. But then they come into your life, and in a very short period of time, you're like, well, I don't like that side of you. Can you change it? I don't like that part of you. Can you change it? I don't like when you wear ripped jeans. I don't like when your hair is disheveled. I don't like when you curse. I don't like when you get angry. Can you change all these things, please? Can you be the version of you that I was imagining that you would be after I put all of that work and investment into you? There's a couple of you are like giggling a little bit because, we do that across the board. We all do that. And then we're like, well, where's the you that I fell in love with? And the you that you fell in love with was never there to begin with. That was just some picture that you made up in your mind because the ego said things need to be a certain way. My desires need to be fulfilled in a certain way. And this person can be molded to fit that. But that person was never that to begin with. They were just who they are. So in that regard, desire takes us awry. It takes us for a ride. And it will never make us happy because there will always be something lacking. But then if we shift our focus and we come to the desire of the heart to know one's own self, and we're willing to take all that work that we put into making that person who we thought they should be for us, if we take all of that energy, all of that work, and we apply it to the longing to know who we are, to the self-inquiry, there won't be dissatisfaction there. There'll be some uncomfortable moments, but there won't ultimately be this, well, you're not the one I fell in love with. Instead, there'll be a revelation of, you are exactly what I love, what I fell in love with, and you are exactly what I forgot I loved. And that will bring a softness to the heart and a peace to the sense of self, to have that remembrance of the self. Does that make sense? Mm. So these desires, they work in so many different ways. So when we walk through our life and we make statements like, I want to be awakened. Do you? Do you really? That statement has to be followed up with a very important question. Are you willing to redirect all of the energy that you're sending out in all of these other desires so that you can do the work of that one? Are you willing to stop making 50 gazillion calls a day? Are you willing to stop drinking and to stop committing violence, to stop running around like a chicken with your head chopped off? Are you willing to stop the distractions? Are you willing to turn the TV off a little earlier in the evening, pick up the japa a little bit more often? That would be your mala beads that you do your prayers on. Are you willing to put away the childish endeavors, the pranks and the tantrums? Are you willing to put those things away, to stop looking to others to make you full and whole? Are you willing to put all of that away so that you can take all of that energy and redirect it to your work, what you need to do in your own life, so that that statement, I want to be awakened, is transformed and evolved into, I am. I am. I want is taken out of the picture. Instead it is, I am. Wanting versus being. What is awakened? It's like, I'm not going to get there by tomorrow, So isn't I want to be appropriate because I'm talking about some point in the future that I'm trying to get to? And the answer to that is kind of interesting because awakening is not an immediate process. There might be some general exceptions to that for certain people, like the Divine Mother Amma. But for the rest of us, it's not an instantaneous thing. It's a long-term process. During that process, it's beneficial to us to spend more and more moments acknowledging the presence, the already presence within us of that awakening. Whatever it is that I'm trying to remember is already here. It's right here. I'm just not looking at it because I'm on the phone, or I'm on the internet, or I'm on the TV, or whatever it is that my distraction is. So whatever it is that I'm looking for, I'm just not looking at it. That memory, that remembrance, that awareness, that understanding is part of your awakening. And then you do a little bit of work. You say, well, I'm going to rein in some of these other habits, and I'm going to be here, even if I'm not really sure, I'm just going to be here in the midst of this awakening, knowing that I may not yet be completely awakened, accepting of what it is that I have forgotten about myself, but I am in process. And I'm taking all of these distractions and I'm applying it to that. And then when the awakening does happen, it'll be little tiny ones, little bits along the way. It'll be aha moments that will accumulate more and more and more as you continue down the path, as you continue to rein in your energy. You'll have more and more of these aha moments. And then eventually one day you'll just know. And it won't necessarily be an aha moment. It'll actually be a softness. It'll be a gentleness. It'll be a space within yourself where there's no doubt. The burden has been lifted. The phone has been hung up. The television has been turned off. The internet is child's play. And you're happy, content, just being. No matter what life brings you, because you begin to recognize that whatever life brings my way is not for me to attach myself to. It's for me to allow. It's just for me to allow. And if there's a need that arises because of the turbulence in the world and the turbulence in nature's gunas, the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas, if there's a turbulence that's causing a need, then let me be so content within myself that I can answer that call without questioning, without wishing somebody else would do it, without complaining. Let me just do the right action. I was really touched the other day. I was in Ireland and I belonged to this local group called the Antietam, Lower Alsace Antietam group. And they took all the people who were in this group, they're all, the local neighbors and they put them in a chat. And they said, okay, so this is pretty significant what's happening here with these floods. We need to support each other. Let's rally. Let's get together. Let's do this. All infighting stopped. All name-calling, all arguing on the internet went away. And all that was left in this chat was, what can I do? How can I show up for you? Where should we drop off the food? Who needs water purifiers? Who needs this? Who needs that? Who can drop this stuff off? And the coordination, I got goosebumps. Just witnessing that beautiful example of when you follow the desire to be of service, what is possible, versus the desire of I want. The desire of I want leads us to complain about the inconveniences of life. The desire to be of service leads us to not mind the inconveniences of life because we understand they're going to happen anyway. We don't need to invest our energy there. Instead, we can invest the energy in the service, what's needed, as well as the self-inquiry. And so there's so much more that I want to say about that, but first I'll just take a little moment and ask you if you have any questions or reflections right now. Yes?
When you said that the turbulence gives rise to a need, could you explain that a little more?
Say that one more time.
When you mentioned that there are times when turbulence gives rise to need, could you explain that a little more?
Certainly, absolutely. So I guess the easiest and maybe a more extreme one would be we had floods. Floods are a turbulence. And the need that arose was people needed food, clothing, shelter. So the turbulence allows the need to arise. And so we can either sit here and we can say, damn these floods, and just become so caught up in our grief over the fact that these floods happened. Or we can just accept that they've happened and not wallow in that, and get up and be of service.
Okay,
Meet the
I
need.
understood. I guess I was unclear about how that connected to what you're saying about desire.
Oh, because there's two desires there. The egoic desire is to have everything be the way the ego wants it to be, in which case these floods shouldn't happen, they shouldn't inconvenience my life. And so it leads us down the slope of complaining and hopelessness and lack of inspiration because the ego's desires have not been met. But then there's also the other side of desire, and that's the desire to be of service. And the turbulence of the floods has given us the ability to be of service to one another. It's given us the ability to show up without judgment, without complaining. It's given us the ability to show ourselves in the light of generosity, patience, compassion. And that desire, so that fulfills or begins to fulfill that desire, the desire to be of service. And then it says in the teachings that to be of service is the fastest way to come to know your own self, is to be of service, is to become selfless. When we become selfless, we're putting away the story of who I think I am, what I think I deserve, what I think I don't deserve, putting away those stories. And instead, coming from a place of selflessness, greater selflessness. And in those acts of greater selflessness, we see the self. Now, those are two selves, the little s self and the capital S self. The little s self is the self that all the stories are wrapped around. The capital S self is the spiritual self, we can call it. The soul, the truth. And as long as we're invested in the stories and the discomforts and the complaining and the desires of the little s self, then the capital S self doesn't have too much room. So we need to reorient ourselves so that we are responding more to the heart's desire to know oneself, capital S, and less to the egoic desire to make the little s self satisfied. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions or reflections? It's a topic, isn't it? It's definitely one that's worth looking at, though, because as we walk this path, we need to ask ourselves, why am I walking this path? What is it that I'm hoping for, Savannah? Oh, Tarini, did you have a question or a comment?
More like a reflection, thinking about the connection between the turbulence versus desire and need. And I feel like this, it definitely showed up with like the natural disaster, but even in our relationships, some of the most complicated being within our family relationships and extended family relationships, that when there's a turbulence with one family member, whether it be an upset for health crisis or whatever, because there's all kinds of egos that feed into the family dynamic that make it a constant, interesting and place to practice. I feel like the turbulence also gives rise to that opportunity that we don't even consciously make the decision to put aside our own desires, our own ego, that there is that response that so many of us are capable of, and even people that we don't think, they put it aside and they can show up and to fulfill that need. Whatever happens after that, but I feel like there is, like turbulence does provide a gateway to being true and having moments of awareness and unity and love and compassion that we can put it aside. And it's a beautiful thing when it happens. So that was just kind of a reflection and thinking about just different relationships that I've had. I'm like, okay, well, that was nice. And even in myself, when I've been able to do that, because I can just let go. Just let go of all the junk that I've been telling myself, the way that I've been living my way of showing up purely, because a need has arisen.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well stated. If it wasn't for turbulence, we wouldn't know how to get ourselves out of the storm or how to support others when they're trying to get out of the storm. The turbulence is what allows us to figure that out. Yeah.
So you were talking about relationships and like having to kind of set aside all the things that you want from it and searching for yourself. And so the question that came up was like, how do you communicate that that's the journey you're going to take so that it's not taken offensively or that like...
That's a great question. Such a great question. Because ultimately it will be. So there's this great thing that people do, and it's that they become offended easily, and they get afraid of what they don't understand in relationship. So you're in this intimate relationship with someone, and whether it's a parent, child, sibling, friend, lover, whatever, and you decide, I'll tell you a story. So I had a student who wanted to come into our yoga teacher training program. The student had really developed a love for yoga and had been practicing with me for a little while, a couple of times a week, and was like, I don't want to teach yoga. I just want to come into the teacher training and just deepen my understanding. And I was like, well, I think that's really great. She was a great candidate for it and everything. And so this person went home and spoke with their husband, and the husband wanted to meet with us. Why? Because he wanted us to reassure him that her going through this training program wasn't going to cause her to leave him. Wasn't going to cause her to become somebody that he wouldn't know. Wasn't going to cause her to not like him anymore. Now, I applaud him because most of us carry those fears with us and we never verbalize them. He wanted a sit-down meeting. And what was my response to him? I can't make you guarantees. I can't define for you or for her what her path is. All I can say to you is can you love her either way? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Can you simply love her and be happy for the journey that she's on, whether or not it includes you? So how do we do that within our relationship is, first of all, don't make promises that you don't know you can keep. So don't say, this isn't going to change me. This isn't going to change how I feel about our relationship, because really the truth of the matter is you don't know that. But what you can do is search within yourself for the reason why you're doing this. And if you're stepping into a particular path because you want to come to know yourself, then just be honest about that. And say, I don't really know what that means in this moment in time, but if you're patient with me, and if you of your own accord allow me to have this space in order to do the work that I really feel that I have to do, then as it goes on, I'll keep you updated. I'll tell you what I discover. I'll invite you to take part in certain things with me. And if you want to, you can. And if you don't want to, I'll do my very best not to judge you for it. But see, that's relationship. That's being of service. So the service within the relationship and the turbulence within the relationship. The turbulence occurs because I want to control you. I want to control who you are, who you should be, how I see you, how others perceive you to be in relationship to me, because you should be what I want in my partner. And it's vice versa also. That's the same exact way that your partner typically treats you. And this is very human. It doesn't matter who you are or how great your relationship is. There's something that you expect from each other. But now take a moment and think about, if you took those expectations out of the picture, if you said, I don't expect you to be any kind of a way. I don't expect you to wear certain clothes, listen to certain music. I don't expect you to be talkative or to be quiet. I have no expectations. The only thing I want for you is for you to be happy. Not satisfied. Happy. How would that change your relationship? How would it change? And right now I see some of you getting a little nervous. Well, I don't think I'd be comfortable with that change because there's a lot of unknowns there. You know, you got to kind of keep them on a short leash, right? But the short leash is stifling. And the short leash is no guarantee that you won't be hurt. How many of you know that already? Short leash is no guarantee of anything. So why not just let them be? Just let them be. And in return, maybe they'll learn how to just let you be. And in the meantime, you can simply ask for that. You can say, this is my own husband. As I dove deeper and deeper into this journey of mine, he would often say, I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried you're going to leave me for this. I'm a little worried that you're going to outgrow me, that you're not going to need me anymore. And the only thing I could say to him was, I cannot tell the future, but what I can say is I will always love you, no matter where my life path is taking me. I will always love you with all my heart. And we decided that was enough. Not everybody will decide that's enough. And that's the work that you'll have to do. That's a great question. I hope I gave you a little bit of an answer. I tend to go off in all these different divergent paths, but generally, when we're starting to do something on our path, one of the first things, our path of life, one of the first things that happens is we become afraid of how our partner will receive it. But if we look at that a little bit deeper, that's not quite what we're afraid of. What we're more afraid of is how we would feel if it was them. What if as a result of me doing this, they do that? What if they become awakened and they decide this relationship isn't right for them? The ego becomes completely contorted with its own fear, and it stops us from growing. Because we say, well, if I venture down this path of yoga and I start to find myself and they become dissatisfied with that, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And so we'll slow ourselves down. We'll take little tiny steps, or we'll back off completely out of fear over what they're going to do. That they may end up finding out that they actually don't need us, don't like us, don't want the relationship. So stifling. Think of ways to bring more freedom into your relationship. Understand that no relationship is 100%. It doesn't exist. And nowadays, as discomforting as it is, most relationships don't last. And if we go into a relationship understanding that in today's world, with the conditions of the Kali Yuga and where we find ourselves, most relationships are not going to last a lifetime. The more freedom that you have within your relationship, the more that you don't pick up the phone 50,000 times a day just to prove you love them or to have them prove they love you. The more present you can be in the relationship, the more you can enjoy the relationship outside of the fear of the ego. Does that? Yeah. It's powerful. It really is. And when I say freedom within your relationship, I'm not suggesting that you don't have boundaries. So let's be very clear about that. Every single person needs to have boundaries in relationship, no matter who the relationship is to. We need boundaries. Without boundaries, we tend to become harmed, exploited in some way, shape, or form. So you need to have your boundaries. But there also needs to be some flexibility so that you recognize when your boundary is healthy versus unhealthy. So, an intimate couple, one boundary. I have an expectation for monogamy in this relationship. Unhealthy boundary. You're not allowed to talk to any other woman. Right? Healthy boundary, unhealthy boundary. So doing the work of discovering what those are within the relationship as well. Great question. Any other questions or reflections right now? Tom?
What you just shared is the sense of a cellular membrane, okay, like how a cell or myself in relationship with other, right? That this cellular membrane has an intelligence. It has the ability to allow certain things in and the ability to create a boundary. Right? And that the organic nature of that, the superior intelligence of this thing without a brain, or without a thinking mind, that we know. Right? We know what is healthy and what is unhealthy. And I think it's developing a trust in that knowingness, that trust in that inner sense of, I like the word healthy, what is healthy?
Yeah.
What does it feel like?
Absolutely. And we do have this superiority where we think that just because we have a brain on a brainstem, that we're more intelligent than a cell, but a cell will say no. Yeah. You cannot cross this boundary. And period. There's no second guessing that. And we'll be like, I don't know. Maybe. And then we'll carry it with us for 50 years. I mean, oh my God. Yeah, the things we could learn from those parts of ourselves that we tend to look down on as being less intelligent. Yeah. But yes, so we have this tendency to want the happy, joy, the enjoyment, the pleasure, and to have all of our desires pull us in that direction, including in our relationships. We want our relationships to be a certain way, to be romantic all the time, to be perfect all the time. And we may even say to ourselves from time to time, I know that relationships are work. But then the moment that the turbulence comes and the work is necessary, what do? We complain. We say, well, you always do it that way. You never tell me this. You never do that. We use the turbulence as an excuse for our anger instead of an inspiration for further work, for further refinement. We use the turbulence as an excuse for anger, dissatisfaction, and everything else that goes with that. When we could just say, now, my husband and I, so my husband, not my children's biological father, and when we first decided we were getting married, we decided that we were going to meet anything that could possibly come up in a very positive way, and we were going to start off with couples counseling. Very, very, very strong suggestion, and I think that every single person should go to counseling with the right counselor, and that we should all be open to the insights that can have for us, because this counselor said something to us that I carry forward today. She said, so I'm going to have Kathy and Cindy, would you stand up and face each other? I'm going to go to the Taylor Swift song now. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Right? So I'm the problem, whatever the problem is. Maybe I'm the financial problem, or I'm the trust problem, or I'm the whatever problem in this relationship. And they're facing each other, and they're yelling at each other, accusing each other. Why won't you fix the problem? Why won't you fix the problem? Why do you cause the problem? Why are you the problem? All they have to do is turn and together face me, the problem. But instead, they look at each other as the problem. Oh. So in other words, remember, in relationship, you're together facing a problem. You're not the problem. And thank you so much. And that's true no matter what. No matter what. Whether it has to do with finances or fidelity or whatever. It's always the truth. If you talk to each other like you're the problem, no, you're the problem, then you're not facing the problem. The desire that you're trying to fulfill there is to have the other person be the wrong one. Be the one to blame. But if you go the other way with desire, the desire to know oneself, the desire to rediscover the truth of oneself, the desire for freedom, then what you do is you look at that other person and you say, let's look at the problem. And you take the you always and you never and you out of it. And in another way, we accept the responsibility of the relationship that we have placed ourselves into. And sometimes it means that the relationship won't continue. And sometimes it means it will. But that doesn't need to be your motivation to either face the problem or hide from it. The idea that the relationship is going to continue forever is a fallacy, because nothing in this world continues forever. I didn't marry my husband because I wanted to grow old by myself, but yet here I am. He's no longer here. So when I'm saying to you that relationships don't last forever, that could be for any number of reasons. And the more honest we are with ourselves about that, I think the easier, maybe, it becomes to be able to do things within the relationship, like move away from the egoic sense of being satisfied within the relationship and start looking for the true depth of happiness that's possible. And that means that you can't depend upon the other person for your happiness. It doesn't happen. And they can't depend on you for it either. But you can certainly work together toward it. Therein lies the work. Yeah. So this, I want to be awakened, I want to be happy. They're just statements of a mind that's constantly thinking about what it wants. I am is a definitive statement, absolutely, of your intention, what you are currently working with and toward. Any other reflections or questions? Yeah?
Just a tiny one is that I want can easily be exchanged for I am willing. This little bit of willingness, right, is kind of comes from the seed of desire, right?
Yeah.
It comes from a longing, So anyway, that's all.
Absolutely. And that's a really beautiful way to say it too. And just as a personal example, people oftentimes ask how. I don't have an answer for that. But how, all of this happened with the ashram, and how, what did you do? And I said, okay. I said, I'm willing to do it. Who did you say that to? Her. That. I just said, I'm willing. For as long as you want me to. The only thing I asked, the only boundary, if it were a boundary that I put there, was I said, please just let me know in a way that's really obvious what it is that I should be doing, what direction I should be walking in, because, the mind, yeah. I'm willing to. I'm willing. I'm willing to listen. Have you told somebody that lately? I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to hold the space. I'm willing to do the work. That's important. And in saying that, not only to yourself, but perhaps to, another individual, your partner or your child or whoever it happens to be, you saying that might just open up their ability to say the same thing. Maybe. But you can't say it because that's what you expect to happen. Yeah, no expectations.
That's not willing.
That's not willing. Exactly. That's conditional. That's conditional. Exactly. And also, because you have epiphanies, and I know that I know so many of you fairly well, and I know that you've been on this path and you've been doing such beautiful work and really seeking those deeper insights about yourself. As you have those insights, as you have those aha moments about your own self, don't expect other people to have them too. Don't expect other people to see the light that you see, to see the truth that you see, to have the revelation that you have. Because that's your path. Their path may be much, much different. So when you go home and you say to your spouse, this is what I found out. Don't you think that's right? Don't you think that we should be doing that? You should start doing this. Don't do that. Don't do that. You could say, this is what I discovered today, and I'm just so thrilled about it that I wanted to share it with you. You don't need to say anything. I'm just sharing. And then when you're done sharing, say, what did you find out today? I would love to hear. No requirement. And then if they say, I don't know nothing, this is really weird conversation to be having, then you just laugh it off and say, yeah, I know. But if they do share something with you, then you listen only. And don't try to apply the salve of your own discoveries onto their experience. Listen consciously, without the need or the desire to make it even better. Yeah. Okay. Time check. We're at exactly 11:30. So unless there's other thoughts or reflections, we'll end for today. Yes?
I just wanted to reflect real quick that it resonated with me, the I am versus I will. And it reminded me of the language of responsibility. So I practiced at the Gestalt school, and the language of responsibility is a big piece that I personally learned, and that taught me on how to change. Even whenever I talk about my spouse and I, instead of using we when I experience something or feel something, say I. So just own my own feelings, my own emotions, own my actions. And that pertains not only to my spouse, it pertains to all of the social settings I'm at, like at my work. So that really resonates.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a great thing, the language of responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. It truly is. And it's even, you can take it even to the extent where you don't say you, right? You don't point your finger and say, well, you said that, you did that. No. Instead, you find a way to say it through I. I have feelings. I have a tendency. When I hear something, I interpret it this way. You take complete responsibility. Some people don't like that. It's scary as all heck, right? Because it's like, well, they're wrong. They should own up to it. And it's like, no, we're not talking right or wrong here. We're talking health versus not health. Wholeness versus brokenness. We're talking about the type of desire that manipulates and harms versus the type of desire that leads to one's knowing of one's own self. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, thank you for that. Language of responsibility. Sometimes people would think I was a little, crazy, I guess, because I love that. That self-responsibility, to me, self-responsibility is freedom. It's like when I make myself responsible to you, I have no control. You do what you want to do. You can treat me whatever way you want to treat me. You can drive me across the coals, whatever. You know, when I make my happiness and my own sense of self-worth and my own sense of self-awareness dependent upon anybody else, I don't know what I'm getting. The only way that I know what I'm getting is if I am solely responsible. Is if I say, this is the whole story. It's all me. You know, Taylor's got it down, right? Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. I know, I just love that song. I don't know why I do. Yeah, I was never really a very big Taylor fan. It's not that I didn't like her. I just wasn't, wasn't really aware of her until the pandemic, and she came out with that ever. Who's a Taylor fan in here? She came out with these home recorded albums, Everwood, I think it was, but they were just really so heartfelt, you know. And then this newest one that she came out with, that particular song, it just one day it stuck. It was like, hi, it's me. There's so many things you could talk about with that. I'm the problem. Yeah. At any rate, I digress again. So, yeah, we'll keep our Taylor conversation for another day. Let's sit up tall. We'll close the eyes. We'll take complete responsibility for ourselves. In this moment, complete responsibility. I am responsible for my own happiness. I am responsible for the inner peace that I feel. I am responsible for the embracing of goodness or the pushing away. I am responsible for the decisions that I make. I am responsible for the love I give and the love I take. I am responsible. And only I. Because I cannot control what anyone else does. I'm drawing the hands together in front of the heart. We'll lift our voices in one Om. Om Shri Matre Namaha. Thank you all so much for being here today. Such a joy to gather with each and every one of you. Ultimately, whatever you do, whatever you desire, whatever you chase after, don't chase after it for yourself, egoically, chase after it for her. Give it to her. Give it to Ma. Yeah, do everything for Ma. Keep nothing for myself. problems will be alleviated, relationships will be cured, life will be much different. It's only when we start to take it for ourselves. Come into some difficulties there. So they are serving lunch now.